Hello, hello, hello. I am Serena Freedombear, and it's coffee time. For those of you watching the replay, we're going to give a couple minutes for people to see the notification. We are streaming on Twitter, Facebook, and on YouTube. So if you are wanting to follow any of these other platforms, I am Serena Freedombear on YouTube, Serena F. Bear on Twitter, and Serena Freedombear on Facebook. You can also find me on TikTok under Serena Freedombear. So today we have a very special guest, but I'm going to give a couple minutes for others to see the notifications that we have gone live. So I'm going to ask for a little bit of patience. And while we do that, let's go into the weather report. So I'm not at home today. I'm not at my regular offices. I've actually out and about. Good morning, Tasha. Good to see you. And so I'm out and about right now, and I thought I would come in and introduce you guys. I'm actually in Cowichan Bay, and I wanted to be here because our guest that's joining us today is also from the area, and I was hoping that it would give him a little bit of a sense of home. I'm going to give a couple minutes. Hello in California. Good to see you. Thank you for joining us. So this guest who I'm bringing in, he is somebody that I have the honor of calling friend. I actually met him while I was campaigning here. For those of you who know, I ran in the municipal elections, as did he. And so we had the honor of meeting each other, and I got to get to know him through that and since. So good day, everyone. Thank you for joining. It's good to see you. A grand day to you, Lester. So for those of you who have been waiting, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our guest. Without further ado, everybody, please welcome Dr. Chris Shaw. Let's see. There we go.
Hi, Serena.
Hi. Thank you for joining me.
Well, thank you for having me. It's nice to be on your show.
So,
looking forward to it. Yeah.
For those of you who don't know, I want to give a little bit of an introduction, and then I'd love for you, Chris, to go deeper into who you are and your background. So I met you, as I said, while we were campaigning. You ran for city council, and right. I had the privilege of watching you during some of the all candidate, I guess, meetings, and hearing you live speaking about some of these amazing things that you were able to educate on and bring some of your perspective to. But then more recently, you helped to organize the Cowichan Valley Citizens Congress, and I got to hear you there, your voice as well contributing. So it's an honor to know you, Chris.
Thank you, and vice versa, Serena. I really appreciate everything you do, and your performance when you ran for council was really astonishing. I think you really raised a lot of consciousness in the valley here, and that was the real reason for running, is just to educate people about what's going on. And getting a seat would have been nice, but this was a huge win for us in the freedom movement to actually get people to run. And I think we did really well.
I agree with you, and I had a lot of people come up to me after and say, "Oh, I'm sorry you didn't get in." And I'm like, "You don't need to be sorry, because we did exactly what we were meant to do." We brought our voices and we brought awareness in areas where it was not heard before, or not people didn't have that understanding of what was happening on another level, a deeper level.
Absolutely. And and it was really crucial because a lot of people promised to become the opposition, and there hadn't been an opposition in the valley. It had been kind of wishy-washy, kind of a pro-labor or kind of wishy-washy environmental, and they weren't really in opposition. They kept voting for the same stuff by and large. And what it really took was for an opposition to actually grow around the issues, partially around freedom issues, partially around kind of the plans with the official community plans that were kind of revealed. And various people who ran for council, and you guys who ran for school board, you've stayed with it. You've all stayed with it. And that's really impressive. We have become the opposition in this valley. We have become the resistance. And we will keep the people who got elected, hold them to account always. Because they're, the stuff they're trying here, it is the stuff that comes directly out of the World Economic Forum, as we all clearly realize. And I think British Columbia is kind of their beachhead. They think if they can take British Columbia, they can take the country. And maybe they're right, because British Columbia, with the health regulations and so many of the other things happening here, is rapidly going the opposite way from most of the world. Most of the world is relaxing restrictions, saying, oops, maybe we made a mistake, or mistakes were made. They're kind of backtracking a lot. even the WHO, even the CDC. And yet Bonnie Henry, our own provincial health officer, seems it's time to tighten the screws even more. And there's some concern, I think we all share it, that the Liberal government, some leaked a commentary from their recent convention suggests that they want to bring back the mandates and bring back the restrictions and the flight restrictions and the quarantines and the things like that again. And they will.
And we also know that in Bali for the G20 that they actually, the world leaders all agreed that any mandatory vaccines that the WHO brings in, including the C19, that they would be in compliance and agreement with it. That was this past late fall when they were in Bali that came about. So we know, and then when we look at what Bonnie Henry, like you said, brought in for our health order, she said, she even stated in there that to offer services to the unvaccinated is a risk, and not allowing the health professionals to return to work. So
yeah, it's a risk to her power. So of course that's what she's going to say.
And the narrative.
I think at the point when governments are agreeing that a foreign entity, the WHO, can dictate health policy to their citizens and make them take things they don't want to take, I think that's the point when the government authority in that country has broken down. And I think at that point, I think we have to decide what we're going to do on our own. Because if the government is mandating that sort of stuff and punishments, I mean, we've just heard Justin Trudeau say, oh, well, I never said anyone had to be vaccinated. And thank God for the Wayback Machine, because then we see he said exactly that. So we're going to do it again. When our government is responsive to a foreign entity, that is the government that I can no longer serve. And that's just, they have gone a different path, and we will maintain our autonomy and independence in the face of that. And I think people across the country are feeling that this enough is enough finally.
Absolutely. I think you and I,
but even now more. Yeah,
absolutely. Sorry. You and I have had the opportunity to have many coffees together now, and we share, I find that we share a lot of different perspectives when it comes to the future, when it comes to government, when it comes to this country. We share a lot within that. But more recently, for those of you who don't know, Chris here actually was one of the individuals who testified in Vancouver when the National Citizens Inquiry just took place. And for those of you who would like to see that, I did post the link, but we will post it again. And I will drop it in this message later as well. And so you can watch Chris's testimony. But Chris, did you want to walk us through a little bit about who you are? Like, what is your background? What is your education? And why were you testifying for the Citizens Inquiry?
I am a neuroscientist by training. I got my PhD in 1979 and then came to Halifax. I worked at Dalhousie University as a postdoctoral fellow for several years studying plasticity in the brain, then moved out to Vancouver with a group of other vision researchers to look at a whole range of things, but ultimately wound up looking at neurological diseases, focusing on Lou Gehrig's disease, which is a truly horrible disease. And we were working on that up until the point in December 2021 when I got put on unpaid leave because I wouldn't take the vaccines. So it was really a Keystone Cops kind of, or Kafka-esque, however you would describe it, kind of set of events. And I was told by the chair at the time that I would be put on unpaid leave and then followed by termination if I wouldn't get the shots. And I waited and waited and waited, and the termination never came. And finally, a new chairperson came in, a little more able to deal with issues, a little more sympathetic, I suspect, who basically decided to move my laboratory up to campus, the main campus, because I had been down at Vancouver General Hospital. That's good news from the perspective of what we had been working on was an early phase biomarker. In other words, a way to detect Lou Gehrig's disease before you have clinical outcomes, before you have clinical symptoms. And we can go back to that. And the other thing we want to do is we're beginning to realize that the spike protein, however it gets into you, is the problem. All right, it's a big piece of the problem. The mRNA, the spike proteins, they don't stay where you put them. They don't stay in your shoulder. They wander all over the place. They go into various places. And crucially, they go into brain. And that's very serious because in brain, we're looking at an organ that does not, by and large, create new neurons. It just doesn't. Somewhat, but not to the extent you can destroy a lot of them. And when you have an infection, when you put a pathogen into a brain, any kind of cell, but if you put it into the brain, the resident immune cells are going to attack it, and when they do, they're going to kill it, and you're going to have dead brain cells. And that doesn't strike me as a very, very good outcome for the long term, because we know from neurological disease studies for all of them, Lou Gehrig's, ALS, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, that they may start and take a long time to actually manifest. Something triggers them, you start losing neurons, you start having the damage done in the central nervous system, and then all of a sudden you're expressing the clinical features of the disease. My concern, looking at all the people who have both long COVID from the virus or the equivalent long COVID from, and some of the neurological disease symptoms being reported, is that a lot of people are neurologically damaged. Therefore, our goal now is to find a way to treat that, to try and diminish the impact of what's already happened by finding ways to break up the spike protein and to stop the mRNA from propagating more spike protein. And we think we have a way to do that. We're going to be doing that in my new laboratory. We're going to be looking intensively at that sort of project to try and find compounds that are easily accessible, bioavailable, and things that can be used to treat people who have been damaged by the virus spike protein or by the injection spike protein. So that's kind of a summary of kind of what we've been up to and what we're up to now.
For those of you who are just tuning in and catching this, I hope you guys just caught the weight of what Chris just said and how exciting that is for information for this movement. There are so many people whom I have met who said that they have taken it to keep their job or taken it to help a loved one, and they are afraid. There are so many I know who actually are struggling from injury after taking this experimental treatment, is the way I'll word it for this live. And what you're speaking about is actually quite exciting for the future for those who have taken it, for those who have loved ones who have been injured, or for any potentials of that may, I guess, unfold. You talked about not seeing the impact right away, but seeing it develop over time. And so for you to be focusing your research on this, I hope everybody understands just how important that is to this movement and to the future for each of us and our loved ones.
No, Serena, I mean, that's what you say is the very, very key point here I want to raise, is that I think we're going to face a lot of neurologically damaged people. The consequence of that, depending on the numbers who were actually vaccinated, who went on and got their second or third or fourth or fifth or whatever, is that with each vaccine, your damage to your immune system, and I'm concerned to your central nervous system, is going to get worse. And what we're seeing a lot is what appears to be a damaged immune response to almost everything, not just to COVID. So that's concerning. Again, if that gets into your brain, you're going to start to have neural damage. And one of the things that's very characteristic of all the major age-dependent neurological diseases is there's a lot of compensation that goes on in the nervous system. So even though cells are being broken, nervous system is compensating, it's finding other ways to do things, but eventually it runs out of that compensatory ability, and then things start to crash. If we don't get in there and find a way to protect people who have been damaged by the spike protein, we are going to have a lot of people in various professions who are not there anymore or not able to function anymore. When you have someone with a neurological disease, typically, unless you are very wealthy, not only is that person taken out of the economy, the workforce, but someone has to stay home and take care of that person. And we've all seen that. And that means now two people are out of the economy. So the impact on the economy is one thing. The impact on children in a home is another thing. The impact on relationships is the third thing. And not just mention the cost. So, if we cannot find a way to blunt that potential wave of neurological damage, I think we are in enormous trouble as a society. I don't know how to do anything besides try and find another way to defeat the spike protein. Now, there may be many ways, and that would be great. We're not trying to make money here. We're trying to find a way to put it out there to the world. If you use these compounds, you might be able to get some relief from the spike proteins that are in your body. That's it. That's the goal.
And I think that is no small thing. You say it quite casually, as though it's, just that. I'm just going to dedicate my work to this now.
Well, it may not work. I mean, this is, in some sense, we have some good compound targets, But, in a sense, it's a fishing expedition. No, we don't know they're going to work. We're trying to figure out what kind of cells we want to try it in. And, ultimately, and again, one of the things that happened when I got put on suspension is the money that was in my grants vanished. That was cute. We haven't figured that one out yet. But assuming we can get some funds eventually, and we're going to apply to various granting agencies, then we would like to not only take it through a cell culture level, but maybe higher levels, and actually ultimately pass it off to some company or some institute to do clinical trials, find out if it works, find out if it will actually do something in a translational sense that will diminish spike protein burden in people who have been injected or just had the disease, whatever it takes. So that's kind of where we're going from.
And what I think is most exciting about this, though, Chris, is like you said, it's you guys are going to research this. You're putting your potential into this for the future, but there is no guarantee in what you're going to discover and how this is going to unfold.
Sorry about that.
But that's okay. But what is exciting about this is that when you see the amazing minds that have come forward, such as yourself, and this is for everybody watching right now, I've brought in some different individuals who have contributed to this movement in invaluable ways. And Dr. Chris Shaw is one of these amazing minds who is making a contribution to this movement. When you see who have stepped forward and what they are doing and contributing towards, there are no guarantees in anything. Tomorrow's not even guaranteed, my friends. But the very fact that you're willing to step forward and to apply yourself towards the building of that future, this is exciting for all of those whom have loved ones who were injured, who have taken it themselves and are worried for the future. And, even within this movement, you and I have had this discussion as well. And we have friends who have as well participated in this discussion, where we have a lot of the general public come because they've taken it. There's a part of them that's so afraid that they can't come to terms with anything we're saying. They don't even want to look at it because of fear of what that might mean for them because they've taken it. And what you are doing and what you are opening the door potentially to can be one of those things that are instrumental in bringing down that barrier so that others can begin to heal and awaken to this and actually face the fact of what is going on a bigger scale. And so I see this as quite instrumental and a lot of different possibilities of how this can create movement in this movement, not just what you potentially can discover and treat down the road, but also how this can help to bring down the barriers that divide our societies.
I mean, that's a really good point. I mean, I guess I have two main reasons for doing this. One is that I have children, and I don't want them to grow up in the world that they will grow up in if we cannot help the people who are injured, and however they got injured. So if we can't do that, the society as we know it is going to be in pretty rough shape, and I don't want that for my children. The second thing is, yeah, we have. These are fellow humans. Maybe they were wrong about the COVID stuff. Yes, they were hoodwinked into getting the shots. Yes, they were scared and incentivized, which are, again, all violations of the Nuremberg Code. All those things are true. And yes, some of them wanted to put us in jail or have us force vaccinated, and that's true. Having said that, we have to rise to the angels of our better nature. In other words, we are humans. They are our fellow humans. Oops, yeah, they screwed up. And let's help them. Let's do the best we can for our fellow humans, because we owe that to all humans, and we owe that to the Creator. We have to be, we have to act in the image of the Creator. And
we need to be more than that which we call out. We
Yes.
can't call out our neighbors for not acting when it didn't affect them and instead speaking for society. So therefore we must be that example of the better, whatever, everything we do is for the betterment of all people, not just ourselves and ours and how it impacts us.
So think, let's, cast our brains forward to 50 years from now. Your grandkids are saying, okay, what happened? Well, that was pretty awful. Some people stood up. Some people fought back. Some people had compassion for the people who would have hurt them. Some people set an example for us here 50 years later of the society that we want and that we now have. And that's, I think, how to look at it. We imagine 50 years forward. What is, you walk out your door, what does it look like? And how are the interactions, and how are the people, and what is the governance? All those things. And you get that. You get what you want. Now, reverse engineer it, and we come back to today. And you don't come back to today and say, oh, we're going to build our new society by penalizing the people who penalized us. That's a dead end, if there ever was one. And humans have been doing this for about 300,000 years, and it's probably time to knock it off. Seriously.
That's right. It's that cycle round and round and round, where we think if we commit the sins of the past moving forward, that somehow we'll have a different outcome, which is the definition of insanity.
Okay, so here let's go into a little personal stuff. So your dad is Palestinian, okay, and I lived in Israel. I'm Jewish, okay. The Israelis and Palestinians are going around and around and around and around, and just like, oh, stop already! It's 100 years. Knock it off. Do something different. And I care very much about that situation, because I have friends. I have friends in both domains, and it's we've got to stop doing the same crap, because no, you cannot solve the problems of massacres by one group by another massacre against the other group. That takes us nowhere.
And except this is true to many narratives.
Yeah. Sorry?
Absolutely. This is true to many narratives.
Yeah.
Right. We also see it with equity. We also see it within our school system. It's something I spoke about when I was campaigning, that we cannot impose upon other families and other demographics and expect a different outcome. Imposition is imposition, and it's the same thing.
It's a guaranteed fail. It's a guaranteed fail. And also, I think I was an Army medic, and I was a medic. More recently, I went with a group of medical volunteers to Mosul when the Iraqi army was taking back the city of Mosul from the Islamic State. The Islamic State were not nice people. They were not. In fact, they're horrible people. And yet, when we had wounded Islamic State prisoners come into our medic station, we treated them, because they were no longer dangerous. Whatever they thought, that was their business. They were injured human beings. We had to take care of them. So, 2 minutes before, some of our colleagues would have shot them, but right now they're injured human beings, and we're going to treat them, and we'll treat them exactly as the same as we treat anyone else. And this is what I think the medical ethics has to be going forward for all the people who are injured by COVID or the vaccines. And, the latter is almost especially because they made a choice that was an unfortunate choice. And, but again, think of how much media and government and the medical establishment and, every business was forcing them and coercing them and leaning on them to do it. People were terrified, and people, the media is constant, COVID is going to kill you. COVID's going to kill you every day, 10,000 times a day, is one of the things that made people do things that would really went against their better judgment. Mm-hmm. And that's a perfect example of coercion. So they're not they're not guilty. They are victims. And that was the big thrust behind the campaign, justice for the vaccinated. They are victims of the government. So what we've seen in the last 3 years is something that's been there for a long time. The utter corruption across the board in medical profession, across the board in much of academia, across the board in the judiciary, across the board in journalism. Just all of these things have shown their true face. All it took, it was a thin veneer of civilization, and we thought we had this thing in Canada where this is a perfect society and everything is perfectly wonderful here. Leaving aside the things like residential schools and a few little details like that. But we thought, all we have to do is just keep shining this little shiny surface and it's all fine. Well, it's not true. The surface was that thin, that thick, and all it took was a little event like COVID to let the government come out of their little closet and start behaving like they always wanted to behave. And the totalitarian stuff we saw in Canada in general, the stuff we saw and continue to see here in BC.
I would go so far, actually, Chris, as to say that actually the groundwork for this has been laid for generations. And
I would agree.
Towards this. And so this was the catalyst.
Yeah.
Right. That COVID was the catalyst for what we see coming in. And I would also say, though, that for those who are just coming in right now, because there are people who jump in and see the notification late, you were someone who testified at the National Citizens Inquiry here in Vancouver. So I will post the link later for you guys to watch that. But Chris is working towards something with his background and his education. Would you just again reiterate what you shared a little previously as to what you're going to be working on and what your background is?
Okay, again, I'm a neuroscientist. My primary concern reference COVID and the COVID vaccines is that they are creating neurological damage. They get in, the spike protein and the mRNA, at least from the vaccine, seems to go pretty much everywhere. It goes into the CNS. We know that. We've known that since 2012 when a company, an offshoot of Moderna, did the study. We have the data from German pathologists that shows that it's true in humans too. Spike protein is a toxic compound. Whatever, we're not entirely sure all the things that it does, but it definitely damages blood vessels. And I would imagine that if it starts to decorate any cells in your body anywhere, your immune system is going to kill that cell. That's what they do. It's going to be true in the brain. And in the brain, there is almost no regeneration of neurons. So you lose them, they're gone. The goal here is to look for certain compounds that have been identified in the literature as potential compounds that could degrade the spike protein so that it ceases to do damage. Okay, the mRNA, we're not sure, but the spike protein, insofar as we're coming to believe the spike protein may be the problem, both in things like long COVID and in the vaccine injuries, we have to get rid of that. If we can get rid of that, if we can detoxify it, we might be able to stop whatever process is happening in the brains. If we do it early enough, we may be able to prevent people from progressing to any kind of neurological disorder, or at least the expression of a neurological disorder. So that's kind of the goal. We have the compounds. We're setting up the lab now. My assistant now is up there at UBC, at VGH, Vancouver General Hospital, in the process of moving the equipment that I have in my laboratory there up to the main campus. And we hope that this summer, we can recover the money that got vanished. If we can get back to work, we may be able to test some compounds that may have some therapeutic value. That's the goal. And again, it's a fishing expedition, but you fish where they're fish, right? And we think the compounds are good. We kind of know how to do this study, and that's kind of our goal, is to actually try and find a therapeutic for the injured people, however they got injured.
You guys, I don't know if you heard about this, Chris, but on June 3rd here in the Cowichan Valley, at our very own hub, I'm going to be hosting an event. I've been invited to be the host for I Am Not Misinformation. And it is a documentary that's gone through a few different communities, and it is coming to the Cowichan Valley. Nice. And it is for those who have been vax injured as well. They're going to have a panel there. Dr. Nagasi is one of the guests who are going to be there. And so this is going to be a great opportunity for those of you watching to bring your friends, to bring your loved ones, to bring anyone who potentially could be suffering from an injury here. But also, this is an absolutely great opportunity to people who are on the fence or perhaps not awake. They can come and see reputable information, but they can also have health professionals and scientists sitting there who are going to be able to answer questions and break down what they're watching in the documentary. Now, I feel that with this coming and then hearing you speak about this and the research and what you're going to be dedicating towards, I find, for me, this feels hopeful. This feels like we have some amazing minds who are being proactive towards what we see happening and actually working towards solutions.
Well, I hope so. And I think the more of this we do, I think, if the government ever decides to get involved and decides to fund research into combating spike protein, that would be really nice. I'm not counting on it. So, but we'll stumble along, and eventually we'll come up with a compound. And I think you're right. I think a lot of people are looking at the different things. Steve Pellick, I don't know if you know who he is. He's a professor at UBC. He'll also be speaking in Vancouver this coming weekend. I've worked a lot with him on Lou Gehrig's disease items, and he's done a lot of stuff about identifying the different stages of the COVID pandemic by how many people have been infected and looking at where the spike protein is. So, I mean, he's done an enormous amount of stuff that's really, really valuable. And there are other people at UBC working along the same lines. And they're keeping a little bit quiet because it's still not the friendliest environment for anyone who questions the official narrative. And in terms of getting funding, you can forget it at this point. But there are other agencies. We're gonna work those. So you never give up. Just keep fighting. That's all we can do. And I look at my children in the morning, and I look at them, and I thought, I got to keep fighting. Someday they'll be.
I want to say thank you, Chris, for that though, because that's no small thing. And I know there was a time here in the Valley before I met you and many of our other amazing, beautiful souls who are also strong advocates. and doers, where I felt as though I was out here on my own. I got to be honest. And so for me, it was completely reassuring and inspiring to see minds such as yourself and some of the other amazing souls who are doers. Like for those who are coming in late, Chris ran for city council. He put his words into action, and not only that, he's doing it once again. He's testified for the National Citizens Inquiry there, and speaking about what happened, but he's also being proactive and investing in the future, his education, his time, his life work towards helping everyone in the betterment because of what has happened, and with the potential of a treatment down the road. So I want to say thank you. Thank you. That's amazing.
You're welcome, and I hope many other researchers will start doing the same thing. People with more funds go, please. I don't need any credit for this. If we succeed, I just want to see it come out. So whoever wants it, whoever wants to do the same thing, we'll collaborate with anybody, and we're happy to. We don't want credit. We just want to and solve this problem. And again, I'm looking at my children. I don't want them to grow up in a world where, if Bonnie Henry is right, 98% of surgeons are not working anymore. That would not be good, etc. And so therefore, airline pilots aren't flying, and soldiers aren't on the borders, and the ferry workers are not driving the ferries. So, let's stop that before it becomes a more serious problem.
You know what? I don't know if you're noticing some of the comments I'm putting up. And it's
I
got
don't
me a
see
little bit teary right now as I'm reading all these comments.
Where are my
People
comments? I don't see them.
right here in the comments. So it'll be on the screen. If you can't see them, sorry,
Oh, I
you
do
should
now.
be
Yeah,
able
thank
to see them.
you.
But if you can't, you can see them in the replay. A lot of our guests who are here in the comments are people themselves who have been injured. And I just want to say so much love to you. When I see Lisa says, Serena, thank you for all the work you do and all your guests, because it gives me hope. And Chris, that's exactly what your work does. And that's exactly why I invited you here to share what you're working towards, because this is hopeful. And we are building the foundation of the future and for all the next generations, whether it's food security, whether it's healthcare, whether it's treatment, whether it's economic or social alternatives, social platforms, whatever it be, it's all a part of building that future. And we have the foundation built. And so this was touching me as I'm reading this and seeing so many people here who are saying, I took it because of work. I took it to see a loved one, to see my father in a nursing home. I was injured. So many of them here saying that they themselves were injured from taking it. And so I just want to say so much love to each and every one of you watching. Please share this, because we want to share this hope and this inspiration with others. We want them to know that it wasn't all for naught, that there are those who are awake, who are actively investing their time, their resources, their education, their life work into creating solutions for the future, real solutions. And Chris is one of these amazing souls.
Thank you, Serena. You too.
Thank you.
I mean, I think we're I think humanity, I think we're beginning to recognize, people will call it a global war, and it kind of is. We are at a crossroads for humans on this planet. And the crossroads is there is the path that goes towards Klaus Schwab's dystopian world, and Justin Trudeau loves it, and the former Prime Minister of Australia and New Zealand loved it. And then there's a path that leads to human freedom, and it's been a long struggle. And I think we will eventually prove the right path.
You know what? I want to remind everyone that this is global, what has happened. And this has affected every demographic, every economical. So it doesn't matter what your tax bracket was. It doesn't matter your career. It doesn't matter your race. It doesn't matter your religion, your gender, your sexual orientation. It does not matter. Right? We were all equally targeted with this, and
not Bill Gates, but
except the among the elite, right? But I mean, you and I, for example, we've had many fascinating conversations. You brought up the narrative of divide earlier, coming to a different point though. But essentially, we can't afford to divide anymore. Nobody here is our enemy except those whom are bringing in globalization. They understand the nefarious things they are doing and what it's towards. We understand those who are backing up and manipulating their words to justify what they're doing. but we have so many amazing minds from all walks of life, all careers, all demographics, all tax brackets, right? And we need to recognize that we are all allies in this. So that is Dr. Chris Shaw. That is me as a matriarch. That is so many. Whether my mom is Cree, my dad was Palestinian. You served in Israel, right? And so when we look at these things, you and I sat there and we talked about when I went on that conversation on a live, and it was all Israelis, and they were trying to get me to say that I hate Israelis. I have no hate.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if it's past wars between our ancestors or things that are currently unfolding still to some of our blood family, or whether it's what divides us through our medical choices or what divides us through our political choices. The divide is only there if we allow it and we perpetuate it and we subscribe to it. There is no true divide there. And so the work you are doing is for the betterment of all. And that is what each and every one of our work should be as well. We cannot say, we cannot call out being discriminated against while we move forward with solutions that discriminate. We
Absolutely.
need to be more than that which we call out.
Absolutely. Absolutely correct. We have to be the example of the kind of people that we want us all to be. And the old expression, it's easy to talk the talk, but let's walk the walk too.
That's
and
right.
treat all human beings with compassion and respect.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to say thank you, Chris. Is there anything that you would add or that you would like shared?
Again, and share with the people, the Citizens Council. You can also have them look at the various children's health defense programs that I've done with Stephen Malthouse and Charles Hoff.
Do you have links for those? Because if you can share that link to me, I can add it.
I will do that right now. Okay.
And I can even do it right now. Actually, if you send it now, I can also do that. Here, you guys, for those of you who would like to, let's see if I can do this. If you would like to watch, how do I? Chris testified in the National Citizens Inquiry here in Vancouver. It was absolutely amazing. And for those who would like to be able to follow that, here is the link. And you could also just put that in a search engine and find that. And you can see Chris's testimony among many other amazing testimonies. Chris, you go ahead and share with me some of the other work you've done with Dr. Malthouse, you mentioned, and that was with what organization was that with, or what?
It's with Robert Kennedy's Children's Health Defense. We have a monthly show. It's called Three Canadian Doctors Speak Out, something like that. Let me try and track it down for you.
Amazing.
And we try and have fun with it. We're a little bit lighthearted, and some of these topics are fairly not funny, actually, as we've been talking about. And we try and keep it fairly light. We do kind of make some fun of Dr. Henry because she's what can I say, an idiot, and or an agenda-driven person, maybe both. And all right, let me find this thing for you.
People are asking if it's okay if they contact you.
Yes, they can. Ideally by email, not phone, because I'm driving to get my kids all the time, and so.
Okay, so I'm going to put that up. There is Chris's email address. It is CASHAWLAB@gmail.com, and it is on the screen, so you can watch the replay if you don't have a means of writing it down now. And you can just pause and take it right off the screen, or someone can put that in the comments if you'd like, and I can pin that comment with Chris's email, and you are welcome to reach out. Somebody else is asking, Chris, if you know, for anybody for neurological issues, anybody having memory issues right now, is there anything they can do?
We don't know. The short answer is we don't know what they can do because we don't know several things. We don't know the dimension of the problem because the distribution in which areas might be affected are not really known because those sorts of studies have not been done. And given that, we don't know what part of the process, the degenerative process, might be contributing to that, the brain fog or whatever kinds of mental disorders. So it's I'm sad to say that there's probably not much to do. What I would do And again, keep in mind, I'm not a medical doctor, I'm a researcher. But if I had that sort of thing, I would be doing things to strengthen, because these turned out to be key in all, some part of the process in all neurological diseases that I know about. There's an inflammatory process, there's a mitochondrial dysfunctional process, and there's a microbiome problem. And all of these seem to have a microbiome component. In other words, all the billions or maybe even trillions of bacteria that live in your gut are the ones that have a big role in apparently in neurological disease onset and duration. So I would take care of those things. I would get your microbiome sorted out by taking whatever probiotics. I would, again, these are scientific recommendations, not medical ones at all. I would do something to support mitochondrial function, and I would take antioxidants, whether it's vitamin E, vitamin C, things like that. And again, that's probably the best defense you can get right now. Barring us finding some kind of compounds that will start dismantling spike protein. But at least you're fighting back against the things that are happening, and the main one is probably going to be inflammation of various parts of brain. So if you get that under control, maybe you can maybe stop the process. Again, this is very much the same discussion we're having with the major neurological diseases, whether they be Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, or ALS. You can't necessarily, once damage has happened, you can't make that person back like they were before it started. But maybe you can prevent it from getting worse. And preventing it from getting worse for a lot of people would be a functional cure. Okay, and that it sucks, but it's better than the alternative, which is not having the process stop. So anyway, those are the kind of things I would do if I felt that I was having an issue with the brain fog. I would do those things first. Is it going to work? Yeah, but again, not medical advice. That's just my scientific scrutiny of the literature tells me that's something that I would try.
Well, that's much appreciated. Thank you, Chris, for that. And I hope that helps you, Aline. A lot of people saying thank you. And I want to say thank you as well. Thank you, Chris, for all the work you're doing.
Thank you for this show, and thank you for hosting me today. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. And if you end up sending me that link for those whom with the show that you do, anybody can watch, anybody can tune in, and okay, perfect. So when you send me that link, I'll add it to the description of this video. So anybody wanting to find that later who's watching the broadcast, you'll see it in the description. I'll just edit it. Yeah. So perfect. I'll drop it there for you.
Awesome.
Excellent. I want to wish you an absolutely beautiful day, Chris, and I want to say thank you and many, many blessings in the work that you're doing, and in finding the funding for the work that you're doing and for how this is going to help so many. And I just want to say thank you for all of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Serena. We'll talk soon.
Yes, Cheers. Absolutely. We'll have coffee soon. Take care.
Absolutely. Let's do that. Bye.
So everyone, that was my friend, Dr. Chris Shaw, and he is another amazing mind from right here in the Valley, someone who is dedicating his education, his resources, his time, and his life's work to the betterment of all. And for me, that was something inspirational. That was something exciting. And so I wanted Chris to come in and talk about this. And I'm going to ask you guys now to do your due diligence. It's time for you to share and to like this, and to be sure to drop a comment. When you like, share, and comment, it brings it up in the algorithm so more people can see it. So we have a real issue with being shadow banned on social media like this. So I'm going to ask you guys to please go ahead and do that. If as I said, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I do coffee time, and I'm usually streaming right here on Facebook, YouTube, or on Twitter, but you can also find me on TikTok. Now, I just want to take the time to say again, thank you to Chris for all the amazing work that you're doing, and to everyone else. And you guys, the reason I bring these guests on is not just to brag about the amazing minds that I get to live and work with and stand with, but so that you can feel inspired knowing that these amazing minds have built the foundation of the future, that we have these beautiful souls who are dedicating their work towards helping others, and that foundation is built. When I say that, and then I bring you the examples of these minds behind it and the work they've done, I hope that that helps you to see and to feel inspired, and to give you that sense of relief, but also to inspire you to continue doing whatever it is that you need to do. I want to say thank you guys so much for joining me for coffee time. I'm going to be in tomorrow. Actually, tomorrow, guys, I have, if you guys aren't following Kid Carson, you're going to want to go to Spotify and follow Kid Carson, because tomorrow I'm going to be on Kid Carson for another interview. He's an amazing, beautiful soul. For those of you who don't know Kid Carson, I've done two before, I believe episode 80 and episode 90. He first brought me on. He saw one of my TikToks on donut economics, brought me on to talk about donut economics. Then he brought me on again, and we talked about solutions and some of the different things we're working towards. And now I'm going to be back on tomorrow with a Kid Carson show. Who is Kid Carson? I actually brought him on here on Serena Freedombear one evening, and we did an interview with this amazing soul because I wanted his story to be shared. Kid Carson was a popular radio show host out of Vancouver who spoke out against the narrative on the air and was quickly terminated. With that, he started a podcast and used his voice and his platform and his following to help bring awareness and to give voice to others. And I am one of those voices that he has invited on now. This will be my third time going on to share an amazing awake soul who does so much. And we got to remember, it doesn't matter what capacity you're contributing to this movement. Everything is essential, whether it be a voice, whether it be that you're a neuroscientist and you're working towards finding solutions for treatments for the spike protein or damage from the mRNA vaccine, like our guest today, Dr. Chris Shaw, or whether you're somebody who is a farmer, whether you're working towards food security, whether you're working towards alternative education or economic solutions, whatever it is, alternative healthcare, it's all part of the platform. And so I want to say, beautiful souls, thank you for joining me today for coffee time. I will be back tomorrow once again, and at 1 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, I'll be on the Kid Carson show. You can watch that on Spotify. I will drop the link here once he puts it out live. Last time he just released it raw, uncut. The time before, it had taken a few days for him to edit it. So we will see. I have no idea. If you're not watching the live through Kid Carson, I'm not sure when I'll post it, but keep an eye out for that. It's always a pleasure to join our voices, and I have a little announcement that I'll be doing on that show. So beautiful souls, have a wonderful week. Lots of love to you. And like I said, please share this broadcast, because I want this information that Dr. Chris Shaw shared with us to be shared with everyone. It's something that needs to be infused in the movement so that we can be sure that we are helping others to know what work we're doing. All right. Have a beautiful day.